Films about vengeance are nothing new. Some of my personal favorites are about this very theme. Movies like Gladiator, The Crow, Kill Bill, John Wick, Desperado, Mad Max, Memento, Death Sentence. I can go on and on. I love this genre. And this particular theme, it's just a guilty pleasure for me. There's something fundamentally primal and human about this emotion, this idea of revenge. It isn't just simple. It's not just a simple emotion. It's a recurring pattern that can be found since the beginning of human nature, and it's remained a constant. It's that burning desire to restore balance after we believe something valuable has been taken from us. Can relate. Anybody can relate to that. It's pain, injustice, humiliation, loss, and turning it back to those who have caused it directly or even indirectly. It's saying, if I can make them suffer as I have suffered, the world will feel right again. This sentiment, this instinct is at its core deeply human. This sentiment of vengeance, revenge, it's one of the things that ties directly into our sense of justice. It's one of the things that makes us different than other animals around us. Whichever God you follow, whichever government you're under, laws, religion, they teach that retaliation is bad. But why then does it feel so right? It's a question that I ponder often. I've had my share of situations where I felt justice was not served. Never to the point where I felt I need to entertain the idea of taking matters into my own hand. Yet, thankfully, I've not been that hurt. But others have, and my empathy understands their plight. I get it. I have seen what others have lost due to evil, due to what the purpose calls saboteurs, due to nullity, people who just don't care. They don't care that they can take something away from somebody and get away with it. These people who have lost things, I admire their strength and resolve because I know, I am not that strong. And I can see myself in these characters in these films who become a force of fury. As the Punisher once said, you're only one bad day away from being me. And maybe that's why I feel so conflicted with the film Citizen Vigilante. So let us begin and ask the question, what is the purpose of Citizen Vigilante? Is it a story about justice, or what happens when purpose loses control? Citizen Vigilante is a 2026 action thriller directed by the controversial filmmaker Uwe Boll, a director known for making films that challenge audiences and often sparks heated debate, usually when he's taking a well-known property and doing something drastically different with it. Citizen Vigilante was first titled The Dark Knight. You could already see the problem with that, right? After legal concerns, Warner Brothers came in and stopped that due to its similarity to Batman's famous nickname. The title was changed before release. And I'm sure the original title was intentional. It got the film some added attention, and it got even more attention when it was announced that it was starring Armie Hammer, who recently went through his own cancellation phase in the industry. Armie Hammer plays Michael Sanders, a wealthy American living abroad who becomes increasingly frustrated with a justice system he believes no longer protects innocent people. After witnessing violent crime and feeling powerless to stop it, he decides to take justice into his own hands, setting off a chain of events that blurs the line between hero, criminal, and symbol. Sanders is an ordinary man with extraordinary resources, but an ordinary man nonetheless. But like many people, he feels increasingly powerless. Living in a city plagued by violent crime, he repeatedly watches innocent people become victims over and over, while those responsible seem to escape meaningful consequences. Each incident chips away at his faith in the institutions meant to protect society. I mean, we can understand that, right? We see corruption all around us. We understand what this feels like when we see the news, when we hear blatant corruption being ignored or defended by supporters of a broken system, further worsening the toxic symptoms that plague society. Bottom line, innocent people are hurting. We want those who gaslight us into thinking that this system works to feel what those who have been hurt feel. And that right there is what makes these movies work. For me, at least. But in order for this to work, we need the main character to be us. We need to feel what they feel. In this regard, Uwe Boll fails to deliver a relatable character. In fact, he's pretty off putting. Some kind of stoic, one dimensional character that can't even seem to follow some kind of code. Sanders represents chaos manifest. That we can take away from it. A sort of inevitable outcome when injustice goes ignored for too long. And that's what we can get out of this. I really do. Boll has definitely grown in his filmmaking ability. Uwe Boll focuses on the overall message of the film, and he repeats that message over and over. Sanders is not supposed to be likable. He's the result of something ignored. The deeper he goes, the less clear the line becomes between defending society and standing above it. What began as a mission to protect others slowly forces him to confront a more difficult question. Can someone fight for justice without becoming consumed by the power to decide it? The purpose asks, at what point does the purpose of protecting others become the purpose of controlling others? That question does not accuse Sanders of being right or wrong. It invites you, the viewer, to examine how a noble purpose can gradually change as circumstances and power change. We have to try to understand the evolution of human purpose rather than simply judging a character. In the end, the film comes down to justice. And what is the purpose of justice? At first glance, the answer seems obvious, right? Justice exists to punish those who do wrong and protect those who do right. But if that were all that justice was, every society would define it the same way. The laws would be the same, the rules would be the same, the consequences would be the same everywhere. Instead, heck, even throughout history, justice has constantly evolved. Different cultures, governments, and even individuals disagree on what justice truly looks like. In Citizen Vigilante, Sanders reaches a conclusion many people have imagined at one point or another. If the system doesn't deliver justice, if the system won't deliver justice, perhaps someone else should. Perhaps someone else must. That's what makes this film interesting and dangerous. Sanders doesn't wake up wanting revenge. He doesn't set out to become famous. He begins with a simple purpose that almost anyone can understand: to protect innocent people from those who repeatedly cause harm. This becomes his story. But it's a story that evolves. Purpose has a way of evolving. And in the end, you, the viewer, have to decide if his story lost his way or went in an inevitable direction. If Sanders is chaos manifest, is his journey to restore balance pushed too far, leaning into out of balance again? Every decision that he makes reinforces the belief that he is the one who should decide who deserves punishment. The more successful he becomes, the more his purpose shifts. What began as protecting others slowly becomes something much larger. The purpose teaches that purpose itself isn't good or evil. It's directional. It begins with an intention, but every decision either keeps that purpose aligned or slowly changes it. So Sanders may begin with compassion for innocent people, but compassion alone doesn't guarantee where a path will lead. As he gains confidence, influence, and power, his purpose evolves. He's no longer simply responding to injustice. He is redefining justice according to his own judgment. That's where the dangerous part comes in. History shows us that this pattern, again and again, is dangerous. Individuals and governments alike have begun with noble intentions. They sought safety, order, or freedom, yet many became convinced that because their goal was righteous, any method was justified. The danger part of it wasn't their original purpose. The danger was believing that they had become incapable of being wrong. Citizen Vigilante can be labeled as propaganda, since it does lean its message heavily toward one specific group. It blames the problem on one specific group. It repeatedly connects these violent crimes with migrants. Throughout the film, Sanders' growing frustration is fueled by the perception that migrants are responsible for much of the violence around him, and that authorities are unwilling or unable to respond. Now, whether viewers accept that portrayal or reject it, the film intentionally invites them to associate a complex social problem with a specific group. The problem's there. It's up to you to figure out where this film fits in it. And that choice is significant because that choice is up to you. Human beings naturally search for patterns. When we experience fear or uncertainty, our minds try to simplify the world by identifying a cause. Sometimes those patterns are real. Other times we begin to generalize from individual experiences and assign responsibility to an entire group. And this is where xenophobia often begins, not necessarily with hatred, but with fear. Fear looks for certainty. It asks, who's responsible? When the answer becomes an identity rather than an individual's actions, we stop seeing people as individuals and begin seeing them as representatives of a category. Again, dangerous. Throughout history, this pattern has repeated itself. During periods of economic hardship, war, or social instability, minority groups have frequently been blamed for broader problems. Sometimes those accusations contain elements of truth. Yeah, about specific individuals or criminal organizations, sometimes it's there. Often, however, the blame expanded far beyond those responsible, creating suspicion toward millions of innocent people who simply shared the same nationality, ethnicity, or religion. The purpose encourages us to distinguish between individual responsibility and collective blame. Justice requires us to hold accountable those who commit crimes. Xenophobia occurs when accountability shifts from what a person has done to who they are perceived to be. Those are fundamentally different ideas. A society can recognize that some crimes are committed by migrants, or by citizens, or by any other group, without concluding that membership in that group is itself evidence of criminality. I feel like that merits repeating. A society can recognize some crimes are committed by migrants, or by citizens, or by any other group, without concluding that membership in that group is itself evidence of criminality. First is a question of evidence. The second is generalization that treats identity as destiny. Come on. That distinction matters because once fear becomes attached to identity, it becomes much easier to justify prejudice, exclusion, or even violence against people who have done nothing wrong. The challenge for each of us is to resist that shift, to remain capable of confronting real problems without allowing fear to erase our ability to see individual human beings. But I get it. I understand that this is easier said than done.